I am so excited today. I have with me Paul Lucas from Lucas Music Academy, amongst other things that Paul does. First of all, to everyone tuning in, my name is Rebecca Kramer, and I'm here for my podcast, She Hustles. So I have Paul with me. Paul, thank you so much for joining me today. Maybe you can tell the audience maybe a little bit more about what you do. Because you do
Yeah,
more than just you're more than just a music studio.
sure. So I have been working for the Department of Defense for the last 10 years as a contractor teaching intelligence. My background is I was an interrogator and an Arabic linguist in the United States Army. And I loved teaching people. In fact, that was one of the things that I did while I was in the Army, was teaching Arabic classes for about 2.5 years, making sure that linguists were skilled, that they were very fluent in their language. When I got out, as I was getting out, I was offered the job of coming back and teaching for the military, and that's what I'm currently doing right now, at least for a short amount of time before I'm devoting my full time to my business. So continuing to train people, it's something that I love to do. This transferred very well into our current business my wife and I run, which is Lucas Music Academy. We're based out of Hinesville, Georgia, and we are kind of a medium-sized studio. It did not start that way. It was much smaller, more of like a hobby business instead of a full-time studio that my wife was just doing traditional one-on-one lessons. Then she started looking around and somehow found a trainer that said there is a different way of doing this that's actually more effective than doing one-on-one. And she presented it to me. And at that point, I did not have a growth mindset. And she told me that it was $800 for this course. And I was like, that's a lot of money, especially if you don't even know if this is going to work. And she's like, do you trust me? I'm like, yeah, I trust you.
What?
So
Melissa said that to you?
yes, yep. And I said, you know what?
That's
All right,
awesome.
let's see. So she went through the course and she was very diligent about going through the course and then applying it right away, which is one of the keys that I want to go back to later on, is about applying principles right away and seeing success. So she then got the courage up to go ahead and transfer our entire studio over to this new method. And then she did it, and she got no pushback, and was able to then take that studio and then increase it 5x of what it was before. Through this coach, he had other courses. One of them was marketing. And I was like, well, I'd really like to figure out how to do marketing, because I was just doing some stuff on Facebook at that point, just doing organic marketing, didn't really know what I was doing. And he was offering a course. I saw how quickly we grew with his other course, and I was like, well, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn how to do marketing. I'm going to learn how to advertise the right way. And one of the things that I really saw that I was not doing very well was having good systems and processes set in place. Because we grew so fast, a lot of things slipped through the cracks. I wasn't following up with customers. I didn't even know what customers I had. All the leads and things were falling through the cracks. And through the marketing, and as we continued to grow, we were growing too fast. And I needed to find out strategies for capturing everything, which led me to his third course.
Cool.
And it showed me the systems and processes that I needed to put in place and how to actually structure things correctly. Because you can have a business, but if you don't have it structured in the right way and have processes set in place, you may have done something that was successful, but you don't know how you got there.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to duplicate it if you don't document.
Yes. And documentation was one of his big things. He's like, are you tracking your numbers? And I'm like, not really. He said, how many students did you gain this month over last month? I don't know. How many did you lose? How many people did you contact? what's your number increases, and what's the percentage of your conversion rate with your website. So I don't know any of this stuff. He said, well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to track all of that information. And it helped me to understand what I was doing and what was actually getting me results. When I contact people on this particular platform, what kind of success rate am I getting? Are those students tire kickers, or are they people that are actually staying with us long term? And then I started collecting all of that data. And something that Peter Drucker said is, what gets measured gets managed. And it's so, so true. That method of, collecting that data, finding out where you're going and where you were at before, so that you know where to grow from there. So getting a coach made a huge difference for our business. Later on, I hired another coach because we needed to figure out how to expand more, especially with our payment systems. One of my problems each month was I spent so many hours collecting payments from so many different places. I had PayPal, Cash App, check, cash. We had a credit card machine at that point, and it was just getting crazy. And we got everything dialed into one location for collecting payments. And I paid very well for that coach, but she had already been there and showed us what we needed to do. And she's probably about 5 times bigger than our studio right now, and has lots of instructors working for her. And that helped me so much. One of the things that I needed to continue to do was have a coach, someone that was working with me to keep me accountable. And that led me to you, Rebecca. I found out about you through the 10X community. So I've been with the whole Cardone program for a little over a year now. And you were running those role playing. I think it was on Zoom at that point, before Clubhouse was officially out.
Oh, the old days of
the
Zoom.
old days, yes. And I saw that it was a definite need, because I needed to role play. I knew how important it was, because role playing was very important for interrogators as well, because we needed to be exposed to many different situations and know what to do before you actually get into a real live situation and then mess it up. And that's why role playing is so important. And it's something that I make a priority in my schedule each week, because I know what it does and how it helps. And it's such a critical part of the business for doing sales, that if someone is not role playing, they are doing it wrong. I'm even working with my kids at this point, and I see how much it helps gaining confidence.
When you think about anything in the world that you want to do and be good at, you have to practice. So it's crazy to think that, that we don't role play, or that we didn't role play. I mean, I know that I didn't role play consistently before a year, maybe a year and a half ago, not quite a year and a half ago. But everything that we do, whether it's, hitting a baseball, whether it's practicing piano, whether it's learning a new language, like, I still think it's interesting that you learned a whole new language that's not even similar to what we speak. Or I don't know, because I don't, what's the language that you speak?
Arabic.
Arabic, yes. I do know how hard it is to learn a language, because I learned Spanish, but there's so many, when it comes to being good at something, when it comes to being great at something, you have to practice and you have to train. And the fact that you're so consistent, I think, with everything that you learn. And even, I mean, when I hear this about Melissa and her doing, like, maybe she's so good at sales, she's already role playing, and she's listening in on the Clubhouse rooms. Like, obviously she sold you on this opportunity to grow your business really by learning from someone who already has everything in place. Like it sounds like each of the different coaches that you've had in your life have seen that success themselves and
Mhm.
are just sharing their knowledge with you.
Right.
So how do you think training and being consistent with practicing has impacted your business?
I think it had a huge impact on how quickly we were able to grow. When we would learn a new principle, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this for follow up. As soon as we would implement it, we would get the results. And it's like, oh, this is working. Continue to do that. If you keep seeing results in a certain area, you've got to continue to bite on and go all the way. Um, and when I have noticed in my life when I've allowed myself to not be consistent because I've let things take over my time, or I've kind of drifted into other areas, I'll notice that our business starts to shrink,
Mm-hmm.
and then I don't feel good about things either because I'm not being consistent with things. When I'm not writing my goals down, I feel it that week, and because I don't have that mindset and focus on what I should be doing. When you're writing your goals down every day and you are creating tasks out of that to be able to reach that goal, you're much more focused on what you need to do, and it's going to help you manage all those inputs that are coming into your day because you know what's important and what you should be focusing on.
Okay, so I think you have mentioned something over and over since we've been talking, and that's that you're actually implementing. Like, I think it's one thing for people to learn because I mean, I know you train. I personally, I learn, I train on purpose consistently, but it's a totally different thing to actually implement and action the things that you learn because even even learning takes away from our busy schedule. So now that I've learned this thing, now I have to actually take more time and implement it when I barely had time in the first place to learn.
Right.
What advice would you give to someone who's in that spot where it's like, I don't, I barely have enough time to do this one thing, and now I have to like take all this extra time. I imagine switching over your business from one process to another was
Right.
was very time consuming. I imagine that training and being consistent very time consuming. I imagine that everything that you learn that you have to then implement, it's extra time. So what advice would you give to someone? Do you have a special way that you figure that out or
It's very simple but more difficult to implement, and that is learning how to say no to certain tasks and projects, but also how to get other people involved. Because if you're trying to do it yourself, you'll never have enough time. So create more time by getting more people involved. So we are running a family business, which is my wife and I. I do all of our marketing, all of our sales. She does the demos most of the time for converting the customer, and she does a really good job at it because she has a fairly high close rate with it. And then I'm doing all of the paperwork, all of the finances and the taxes and everything else. But we needed more on social media, so I got my daughters involved, and they now help me with my social media and posting and making sure that content is out there on a daily basis. And it was something that I don't like giving over that control because I have things I've done a certain way and things I like to do things a certain way. And you've got to learn how to let go of things and trust other people, but also train them at the same time and give them all the tools because they're learning how to do something at the same time. Specifically, these are my kids, so I want them to be successful and I want to train them. So it gives me an opportunity to train them, and that at the same time, being able to give things over and free up some of my own time. And that's been really beneficial. Luckily, you worked with both of my girls already. I was going to be gone for a trip, and we were getting ready for that. And you really sparked a passion in them to really get on it. And they now look for opportunities to collect content that's going to be something that people really want to see out there. So that,
It was
in a
fun.
nutshell, yeah.
It
Yep.
was fun getting a chance to talk to them. I mean, I think it's exciting the fact that you're able to have your kids involved, but not everybody has that. Not everybody has. Sometimes you have family that is maybe even a cousin, an aunt, whoever that might be able to help you, but sometimes you have to actually go out and find the right people. But it is so important to actually have people who are interested in being able to support you. Not necessarily, I mean, maybe you're paying them, maybe they're volunteering, maybe they're an intern. There's different ways that you can get extra support to be able to multiply your time, especially as a small business owner. So consistency, practicing, finding extra time. It's all, these are all major challenges that I think small businesses, entrepreneurs all have. Now you have your music studio that's growing. You have your wife Melissa and your kids helping you with that, and you have some new technology or some different techniques that you have started using lately.
Yeah, just recently, I was looking at one of my previous coaches. He was showing a new method of making sure that the students were learning very well. Um, Part of our program is getting a new student to learn the piano at twice the speed of what you would see with traditional lessons. That's part of our hook. That's our tagline. That's what we see. We've done case studies on it. We've seen it in practice over and over again over the years now. And we decided to take the iPads in the studio, buy a couple more of them, and then hook them directly up to these digital pianos. Because one of the things that we saw was over and over again, we would have a child start to learn a song, even adults, because we are teaching adults as well.
Oh, cool.
And when they start the song out, they say, "Oh, I don't know what note that is or what key that is." And we saw they're not learning their notes. They're not learning how to read their notes effectively. So we said we need to fix this, and we need to fix it fast so that it's working for everybody. So we use an app on the iPad. They now can hit the key on the piano, and it registers on the iPad. We have a fun little game for them to use, and it's very effective. It even works with the adults. I've even had a 68-year-old student in there playing on this game, and it was fun watching him play what we would consider a kid's game, but he was learning his notes, and he said, "This works so well." So we want to make sure that we incorporate as much into this program so that learning is fun, because we like to do fun things. I don't like to sit down and do my taxes because it's not fun. Now, if there was a game of how to put all the expenses and everything in there, it may make it a lot more fun and be more likely that I would do it. But we want our students to enjoy coming to class and to look forward to it. So now when I have a student sat down and they're working through some songs, they ask, "Hey, when can I play that game?" So it's been drawing them into it more, and I definitely see them learning their notes so much faster now.
So it's also like a carrot for
It is.
for the end. So why do you like? I've heard you mention a couple times that you look to. It sounds like you're looking to learn new things and different ways of doing things, consistently growing, changing up some of the things that you're doing, looking for different, maybe better, maybe just different ways. Why do you think this is important for any business?
I think that you need to continue to look for other ways to grow, expand, and do things differently so that you can maintain relevancy in the marketplace. And This was definitely something we learned last year. So COVID hits, and now there's a lot of people going on quarantine because they might have been exposed. And we had a lot of students that just weren't sure if they were going to be able to continue to come to class.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my old coaches, he reacted very quickly and put information out there and said, hey, here's some best practices. Here's Zoom. I had really never used Zoom frequently before. He put together some training modules for how to set these things up so that you can have your students virtual. And we had done some virtual throughout the years because we have students all over the United States and some in other countries as well. And we had already done some of this, but we had not scaled it to that level. So I know of other studios that closed down during this last year and a half because they were not able to maintain their studio during that time because they just did not learn how to pivot into doing online lessons. I immediately bought some laptops, bought some extra iPads to make sure that we could spread this out. I beefed up my internet to make sure that everything on our end would help this process to go over well. And it was successful. There was a lot of learning curves.
Yeah.
We had to teach our students how to do this as well. But we got into the practice of doing this over time, and it has allowed us to continue to grow. In fact, we've had some of our best years, our best year during COVID, which I didn't expect that because it's a scary time because you don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to lose all my customers? Are we going to drop out? You don't know. So we were glad that we were able to continue to grow during that entire time.
Yeah, and adjust so quickly, and possibly the fact that you were used to consistently making changes and growing and adjusting made it potentially easier because you were aware of things and you were okay with change. Because I think change is something that it's difficult for anyone, let alone, as a business owner, when you have so much responsibility and you have to make decisions so quickly. That is amazing. So when it comes to students learning online, I mean, I think a lot of us have had to adjust the way that we learn based on what has happened during COVID, the way that we interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually also, like, I mean, I wouldn't know you if we didn't have this ability to interact like this. When it comes to learning online, how have you found that you've been able to help people transition into actually learning? Because it's been a challenge for a lot of people.
Repeat that question one more time. I just want to make sure I have a good grasp of it.
Just, I mean, you've been able to teach people online. How difficult has it been, or how have you helped people adjust from being in person to being digital when they're not used to that, or they don't think that they can do it, or it's not comfortable? I would rather have my teacher right beside me telling me where to put my fingers,
So I went right back to how we had continued to build and grow our business, and that was going back to setting up those systems and processes. So my team is my wife and I and my two oldest girls, and I put together a couple of slides that I printed out that showed them how to set everything up, what to talk about with the student. We had drafted up a word pack to send out to the students so they know exactly how to set everything up. And then we would have them get on a couple minutes before their lesson time and then work through all those little bugs. We knew there was going to be a learning curve to it, and I had everything written out. I thought through the entire process. I'm very analytical, so that kind of stuff is kind of fun for me. but we would have that next to the teacher station so they knew exactly what to do. We would have things like, hey, make sure that that person has their audio turned on. And well, they can't hear you when the audio is not on. So I had created a little placard that says, click this button to turn your audio on. Back then it was like use Wi-Fi for sound. And we had that right next to the computer. So you just, shot it up there and they knew what to do.
Wow. I mean, I think we've all had to adjust. I think one of the things that we talk about with you is the challenge that you have is not just selling to parents, you're also selling to the children who you're trying to keep engaged, right?
Right.
I guess what have you done differently, or what do you do differently to convince or to keep a child engaged versus keeping an adult engaged?
So to keep a child engaged, we need to find out what their motivation is first. Are they just playing for fun? Do they have some songs they want to play? I have one particular student who loves Disney songs. So she has a Disney book that she brings with her during every lesson. And she's now working on recital pieces for December. And she's working on them right now because she loves to play Disney songs. So that is a motivation for her. So now she wants to play it first, and I'll say, oh, we'll get to that Disney song. Let's work on our lesson book first, and then we'll get to that. She's like, okay. So now she has a motivation to get to that point. And it's also making it fun by breaking it up. We are teaching some children as early as 4, all the way up through adults. So we've got to find out what their attention span is going to be, and knowing by watching of when you need to change that activity out to something else. And that might just be going to the next book. So we have a lesson book, a technique, and a theory book. They might want to be doing some coloring activities in their theory book, and that'll break it up. Because once you get to that point where attention span is full, it's going to start getting frustrating for them, and they're going to start looking around, and the learning process stops. So it's knowing that and knowing when to transition.
I just had like a flashback of theory days when it would be like the entire session was only theory, and there was no coloring.
Mm-hmm.
There was no coloring back then. So, I mean, I can only imagine. Maybe I would still be playing piano if it was more interesting to me.
Right.
I did learn Under the Sea, the Mermaid Under the Sea on my flute when I was in grade 9. I think that I learned that. Disney songs are fun.
Mm-hmm.
They're lots of fun. How do you think that the way that because it sounds like you're finding out, which is actually, we've learned this from Natalie Workman teaches how to motivate your employees, motivate your staff. It sounds like you're taking some of even those principles by finding out what someone's goals are, what their motivation is, and figuring out how to use that. How have you or have you used those skills to convincing your students how to do something or to be motivated or inspired? How is that translated in business? Whether it's, I mean, because you have a few different things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been able to find that out or figure out what motivates, even just from learning that from the music studio to, say, your kids who are helping you or other people who you work with or different things that you do?
Yes, absolutely. So motivation is a big one. My girls helping us, they have certain motivations for helping us teach. To keep within labor laws, we're not allowed to pay until 15. So we've worked out another system, and that is that they can drop a certain dollar amount into the Amazon cart, and that is their motivation. So they're willing to show up to teach knowing that they can buy stuff on Amazon. I think that's probably every kid's dream, to be able to buy stuff. So that's a motivation for them. One of my daughters has, say it again.
Your allowance. You have to earn your allowance.
Exactly. Yes. One of my daughters, my 15-year-old, has closed demo lessons for getting them here over the phone. And then she's even done some of the demos and closed them here. And you can see that excitement in her. I see how nervous she is, but she does it anyway.
Yeah.
And it was just with a little bit of training that I did with her. And we were just working on simple things like how to answer the phone, how to schedule things, and how to put all the stuff on the calendar, and setting it all up. And I can see it is a motivation for them because they get excited about it, and they're talking to their mom about it afterwards. I closed somebody. I actually did it. I landed a deal. So and it's finding their personality and what really, excites them, and
Yeah.
then playing to that.
Yeah. It's yeah, very, very cool. It was great talking to your girls, and they were really, really excited to learn. Um, when it comes to the things that you're learning, so you train every day, you are learning from me, which you're very consistent with making sure that you're showing up. How has training and being consistent, and you show up on social media consistently, you train consistently, how has being so consistent and learning and showing, I mean, you show up all the time for Growth Hustlers Academy. How has that impacted your business?
Um, well, the first thing is actually showing up to it, which is setting up those habits. So habit stacking. So finding a habit you're already doing and attaching it to that. So right now, I work out throughout the week at lunchtime, and I have set that up as a routine, and it's something that I show up, and everybody that I'm around knows, hey, it's lunchtime. He's working out,
Yeah.
and being consistent with it. Consistency helps with growth. If you want to build a muscle, you've got to work that muscle consistently. You can't just do it for an hour and a half and then not do it for several weeks. You're never going to get that growth, and it's going to hurt as well. And
Yeah.
the same thing is very, very much in business as well. Um, by showing up to Growth Hustlers twice a week, I'm learning something, and then I'm trying to implement it immediately. And one of the things I've liked about our training sessions is you'll have us do it right there, such as, hey, we're going to do stories today, and you're going to record it right now. And it makes you do it so that you learn the steps. Because if I was in the middle of it and said, hey, how do I put captions in here? You could say, oh, you click this button.
Yeah.
And you learn by doing, and then you're more likely to actually follow through on it and then make that something that you're going to do with your business.
Exactly. And I think it's hard when you are learning so consistently that maybe some of the things we're not implementing right away. And so if it's part of the learning, I think that makes it easier to actually consume, right?
Absolutely.
So tell me, what are you the most excited about right now? Whether it's right now in your business, or right now with what you're learning, right now with what you're uh, I mean, your business is a family business.
Mhm.
I think it's so cool because as you grow and as you become successful, it's not just your business, it's your entire family.
Mhm.
So very exciting. What are you the most excited about?
Thing I'm most excited about right now is I am going into a transition period where I'm about to go full time into my business. Right now, I've splitting my time, and it's limiting how much I can do in certain areas of my business, marketing, follow ups, and I know that if I am able to devote my time into that, my business is just going to continue to explode. There are things that we want to do with our business later on, such as developing an online course so that we can start capturing some students that can't meet with us on a weekly basis, where they um, don't have that time to do that, and they have to work on it on their own. And putting together a course that is going to be very beneficial to them that they can work through. That's one of our goals that we're reaching for, but I've got to have the time devoted to it to really make it worth a worthwhile course for the students. So that's something in the near future that we are going to be working towards.
That's pretty exciting. So people can, if they're in Hinesville or if they want to travel to Hinesville, they can hire you or they can join your music studio that way. They can sign up for virtual lessons, and now potentially, hopefully in the future, they'll be able to actually see your courses, and they won't have to be available at a specific time. They can do it at their leisure.
Exactly.
Very cool. So 3 different ways that they can really learn from you, and the music studio. Well, Paul, thank you so much for being a part of She Hustles today. It was great being able to chat with you, and to everyone who's listening, thank you so much for joining us here for the recording of She Hustles. This podcast is on Apple as well as Spotify and a few others, of course. A reminder, don't forget to join my free Facebook group, which is Social Selling Growth Hustlers. And we'll see you again next week at the exact same time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Mountain Time. And we'll hopefully see you soon. Thanks so much. And